Worldcoin. You've heard the name before. It's the newest crypto that scans your eyeballs. Now you tell me if that worries you. Another DeFi exploit with a major crypto exchange, and of course, there's new crypto regulation coming down the road. We discuss all this and more in today's Collective Shift weekly recap. Actionable insights and a breakdown into the crypto market, all in under 30 minutes just for you. As always, we'll start with the market update, followed by the new eyeball scanning crypto. Matt, taking away with the market. What's happening out there?
Thanks, Leon. It's been another rather sideways week for crypto. So, for anyone who does notice, my voice is a bit off today because I was in bed most of the weekend, basically out of action. And I sort of come in on Monday and see what's happening with crypto, and looks like crypto's been in bed as well. It's a snooze fest, to be honest. There is not much happening. Bitcoin's out about 1%, ETH's about flat for the past 7 days. When we look over to the macro side of things, it's a big week ahead coming up. A lot of data coming out, but really last week the biggest news was the Federal Reserve in the US, as expected, increased rates by 25 basis points. They are sort of leaving it open, the door slightly ajar for whether they do hike rates even more. Many argue that's definitely not the strategy they should deploy. Some argue that is what they should do. No one really knows. But I suppose the stock market liked the news and it continues to rally higher. A big sort of story when I look back at 2023 is going to be in June and July. We've been talking about this a bit. Was a real moment of sort of separation or a weakening of the correlation between stocks and crypto. We've seen probably the story of June and July really has been stocks have really gone up higher, more or less, and then crypto has basically just stayed flat. So it's a very, something that I will really look back on as a story of this sort of middle of 2023. So that sort of is what happened again last week. But we do have a lot of sort of, very topical stories and something that we are looking forward to getting particularly into some investment lessons that I think a lot of people learnt the hard way maybe last week.
Yeah, Matt, I think that's the highlight of everyone's week so far. Let's talk about it. That's WorldCoin, right? So I'm sure everyone out there has heard of the name so far and why it's been building a bit of controversy out there. I'm sure Matt and I will discuss a bit more for you so you can get to know it. But basically, it's a new crypto token and a new crypto project that has been been around for a while, but they've only just released their token. So Matt, I'm sure you got some more information for us. Why don't you let us know what all of this is about?
Sure, Leon. So yeah, it's been around Worldcoin for about 3 years now. They sort of officially launched. They'd been testing for a number of years and officially launched last week. And it was controversial for many reasons. I suppose this first little bit we'll get into of why it was controversial was really to do with, I suppose, what the nature of what the project fundamentally is. To really simplify it, the project is sort of best known for its sort of this silver sort of ball that's probably the size of maybe a bowling ball, and it sort of has sensors and lenses in it, and it can scan people's eyeballs, or in particular the iris, which is a part of someone's eyeball, and it can basically verify that they are in fact human and that they haven't scanned it previously. To really simplify it, for this, people who scan it will get rewarded with a cryptocurrency called WLD. And yeah, to keep it just on the controversy of this section, I think a lot of people are just questioning in this day and age, as we know, with the likes of Facebook and all their sort of data security issues over the years, whether it's actually safe to be handing over what is really one of the most sort of sensitive, I suppose, parts of your identity. Where people often think about maybe a fingerprint, but a scan of a iris is arguably even more, I suppose, critical of a piece of information about who we all are as individuals. So that's sort of what has led to a lot of discussion, even in the mainstream media. I saw about this WorldCoin. It's really captured a lot of sort of people's attention outside of crypto because of its association with one of the co-founders being Sam Altman, which is one of the co-founders of sort of the entity that's behind ChatGPT, the AI sort of software that really it burst onto the scene seemingly earlier this year. So that's sort of been the big discussion about user privacy. Should you hand over your data to be rewarded? And of course, we'll get into sort of the token side of things soon. But in terms of the project itself, Leon,
Hmm.
I suppose from my perspective, what ultimately, like, right, what is it trying to be? It's trying to be a system. It's trying to create a system that's sort of a proof of personhood system. So it's a system where everyone can be like, hey, I exist, and here I can prove to you that
That I
basically
exist. I'm not a
my
computer
eye,
program.
yeah, my eye has been scanned with this orb previously. And if you do that at scale, maybe everyone in the world, if you're really drawing out to the extreme, is all scanned and everyone is verified as a unique person. You really then got to ask, okay, is that even a more effective proof of personhood system than some others that we have out here today? So I live in Australia, so do you. We both are citizens of Australia. We have, I guess, government passports and other means of identification, which is issued by the Australian government. I don't think here in Australia we have too many problems with that. But really, there's a large portion of the world that doesn't even have the luxury of having sort of a reliable, centralized proof of personhood system. And I think this is in particular what WorldCoin is more targeted at solving, more so than people, I suppose, in more developed, stable sort of economies and nations. So I suppose that's the reason why it exists. Do you have any thoughts on whether, the likelihood that they can actually go out there and ultimately be successful, or what are your
Yeah.
sort of thoughts, sir?
So Matt, I kind of agree with you there, and it's also very controversial. I agree that on that sense. Yeah, like in the first world countries where most of us live here, if you're listening to this, then it's quite unlikely that you will actually find any use in this. You don't want to prove yourself that you have a proof of personhood. You don't care about the tokens that it's giving you. But if you are in a third world country with a government that doesn't have a centralized ID system and you can't prove who you are because no documentation exists, then yes, this kind of proof of protocol, proof of personhood might be a beneficial thing for your society. It just comes down to the rest of the world and say, okay, how urgently do we actually need this? And is this the right way to go about it? Scanning your iris, scanning your eyeball, because you can't have two people with the same iris. Very similar to how your fingerprints work. I generally don't feel comfortable doing that in the first place. So Matt, for me, I would never let someone even try and scan my eyeball. Um, yeah, I just wouldn't do it. It's just too much, too invasive. The privacy aspect. But of course, that's speaking from a first world point of view, right? From someone from a third world point of view, they may not mind at all if they get some benefits from it, which is identifying themselves as a person, and they end up, being on a register. So Matt, I got a question for you. Then, are you comfortable with your eyeball being scanned?
Basically, very similar answer to you, Leon, in that respect. And I don't think it's surprising, right? I think a lot of, well, Australians, speaking very locally, would come to more the same sort of answer. As you said, very, very, I do agree with you. If I, well, like, can't really imagine, obviously, what it would be like to live in a developing nation, and a lot of the, I suppose, public systems that are
Yeah.
different. But I could understand someone's perspective where they would absolutely jump at the chance to do this, and even from a purely selfish reason, just to do it and then sell the tokens, which we will get into soon. But yeah, I think it was sort of opened up a can of worms about what are proof of personhood systems, and as you said, is it a big enough, a critical issue that the world needs right now? I suppose founders such as Sam Altman would argue this is actually becoming, I guess, increasingly important almost by the day
Yep.
as artificial intelligence. And I suppose it's how it permeates society and enters every industry
That's right.
is very quickly becoming a part of our lives. And I suppose it's becoming harder increasingly to distinguish between robots and humans. You could argue that something like a proof of personhood system is becoming more critical and the need for one. So, it's an interesting debate. And it was, I suppose, very, I guess, very just interesting to see that crypto was a part of what they think is the best solution. So look, I'm sure it'll exist for a number of years. Whether or not it fizzles out into nothing, time will tell. But I
Yep.
suppose factor that will be a critical part of whether it does succeed or not is the actual cryptocurrency native to WorldCoin, which is also called WorldCoin. The ticker of it is WLD. And yeah, so there are these operators of this hardware. So there's this silver, almost bowling ball that goes out and scans people's eyeballs. The operators of those are just people like you and me who can apply to be an operator of these orbs, and they can go out and scan people's eyeballs, and they get paid almost like a commission every single sort of iris that they scan.
It's a
As
referral
well,
system.
it's basically an inbuilt referral system,
Yeah.
as well as the users themselves get compensated with some WLD. So it kind of does sound made up when you describe it like that. But then when the only thing I think that's giving it some legitimacy is the fact that sort of Sam Altman is putting his reputation on the line. It sounds very simple, but to be honest, it's given it, a lot of, I suppose, legitimacy from people in the crypto space as well as outside of it. But the WLD token, so just like any other cryptocurrency, there's just some fundamental sort of high level metrics that any given crypto investor or analyst should sort of look at. Um, it's really how many are out there of this token is always one of the first questions you should be asking. Some tokens have a capped supply, like a maximum supply. Some have a sort of infinite supply. Bitcoin is a great example of one that already says from the outset what its maximum supply is going to be. 21 million, of course. I think it's up to about 19.5 or so Bitcoin that has sort of have entered circulation. So we call that circulating supply. So 19.5 million circulating supply in the case of Bitcoin,
Yep.
out of the maximum supply of 21 million. Critically, with WLD, they have a maximum supply of 10 billion, which the numbers themselves aren't important. I suppose it's just the fact that they've already capped themselves at a supply. And then they have released at launch a maximum of 143 million WLD, which is at most 1.43% of the total supply. I suppose all of these are just numbers at the moment, but to really, I suppose, emphasize just how rare this is, I can't really remember a project in my 5.5 years, living and breathing this crypto world day in, day out. I can't really remember a project launching with such a small percentage of circulating supply. Why does this even matter? Why is it even important? Well, for crypto investors in particular, this is extremely important to sort of just take into consideration when you're researching a given cryptocurrency. Why is that the case? Well, when you've now got 1.43% in circulation, that obviously means that's what 98.6% or so that has not entered circulation. You can only imagine, I suppose, the amount of sell pressure that's going to be unlocked once that 98.6% enters circulation.
That's right.
And I guess then the critical question to ask yourself is, will that 98.6% want to immediately sell for fiat currency like US dollars, Australian dollars, or other cryptocurrency like Bitcoin? Or will they have a reason to just not sell it and to just keep holding it? That's where it becomes critical to sort of look into what is the actual value proposition of the cryptocurrency. Does it have a purpose for existing? Does it have a function? Is there any direct tie between the value of what Worldcoin, the project, goes on to do in the coming years and decades? And is there a correlation between that success and sort of the implied sort of value of the WLD token? And to answer that, you need a bit of experience, but a lot of it can really be at least identified in the documentation of a project as well as the community of a project. You should, if on a really, I suppose, sound and normal project, you should be able to have some sort of direct line to representatives of the project to ask some probing questions about why the token exists and what its value is. So I'll stop there, Leon, but I think a lot of people, unfortunately, are going to learn the hard way, because I quite strongly feel that the value of WLD will sort of go down in the short term and medium term, because I've looked at the documentation. I can't really see that much of a reason for keeping the WLD.
Yeah, Matt, you've given us so much to discuss here. I just want to just briefly summarize the entire thing that we've discussed right now is that there's so many of these tokens that actually can be created, right? And let's say you have 10 billion of them, which is what we're talking about, but only a very small amount of them are actually in circulation now, which makes it seem like the entire thing is worth a whole lot more than it actually is worth, right? And so when most of these tokens become unlocked, you find out who actually owns 98 or 99% of the rest of the tokens out there. When are they coming out into the market? Are they going to sell it? So what do you think that's going to do to the price of the token when 99% of it comes out into the market? Yes, sometimes they will sell. Sometimes it may perform well, but that's collective shift. We're here to advise you and to talk about these tokenomic issues. This is a very beginner trap that a lot of people fall into. So yeah, this is what Collective Shift helps you with. So make sure you check out a membership with Collective Shift. Yeah, so Matt, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. My last thing I wanted to add is that I'm not comfortable with a private company having and owning my eyeball scans. That's my main concern. If it's anyone, it should be at least a state government or a state entity rather than a private company, and that's a big no go for me, Matt. So I'm done. We're happy to move on from WorldCoin. And of course, if you are a member, make sure you check out the WorldCoin post that Matt did do, and he did say why he's not buying the token at the moment, and gives a very sound rationale as to why that is. So thanks, Matt, for that article you wrote there. Now, Matt, I'm going to tap on you one more time. We do have some extra DeFi news that have come out. We've got a really popular DeFi protocol that has actually been the most trusted, one of the oldest out there, but it ended up being exploited, which is what happens a lot of the time in DeFi and crypto. So the protocol in particular is called Curve. It is, among many things, a stable coin kind of AMM. What that means is it's an automatic market maker. If you have one coin, you can take it there and sell it into another coin, another stable coin, for example. Now, the specifics of it, just very briefly, the bug itself or the vulnerability itself was called a re-entrancy bug. So it's a security flaw that allows for potential draining of funds. Now, the white hackers have gone in and have kind of secured it a little bit. They removed all the other funds from the exchange, so it's a little bit safer to use now. But as always, please refrain from using DeFi protocols if you don't understand what you're doing. So a little bit more specifics, the bug was actually caused by a Viper programming language, not to be confused by the Viper protocol on Matic. So they are totally separate. So let's look at the chart right now. Let's see what's happening to the Curve price, shall we? Let's have a look as I share this for you. The Curve token didn't actually perform too well after this news came out. It is down roughly 12% since this news has come out. And we're seeing that price action here down from 0.7 cents all the way to 0.63 cents. So if you have any Curve tokens, that means this does affect you. You need to go and find out more. But we will be having a little brief for you on the Collective Shift platform. So Matt, I just want to get your take on this. What do you think about DeFi protocols and exploits still happening nowadays?
Yeah, it's unfortunate with such a one of the more reputable and relatively safe protocols out there, sort of being found to have a vulnerability that was exploited. So just to give you a sense of the magnitude of this, estimates are coming out that it's in the tens of millions of dollars worth of cryptocurrencies were stolen. And then it sort of doesn't have an accurate figure just yet because of how new this is. It only happened several hours ago. And then there were also, as Leon said, there were actually sort of what are called white hat hackers who went in there to sort of drain some of the funds to sort of basically put them into safekeeping, and then they'll return them. So
I always think, Matt, sorry to interrupt. I always think of them as the good cops. The bad cops came in and the bad cops found something bad in there, but then the good cops came in and everyone loves the good cops. They're going to make everyone safe and whole again. That's the way I think about it.
Yeah, spot on. That's a good one. That's a good analogy, and I think so. We'll find out how much the white hat hackers were able to secure, but it does look like tens of millions of dollars worth lost. So again, this is all what is called either a hack or an exploit for anyone new to cryptocurrency. I suppose it's a reminder here today that even a project as trusted and as sort of reputable as Curve even succumbed to like an exploit, even after they would have passed so many different audits by third party audit companies who would have audited the smart contract code. And even they were not able to pick up this particular bug. So again, a reminder of just that using any set of smart contracts, even if it's on some of the most popular DeFi apps, no matter how much people say, they're locked or they're really high level of guarantee and they'll always keep working. Just at the end of the day, it's just not true, and no one really knows how secure something is until someone comes in and finds an exploit. So I guess number one takeaway for me would be when a project says that it's had audits, that is not always just a green light to say you can use this however much you want. Because again, one audit is just by a set of people who are working for one company who may not have the technical skills to cover every basis. Probably the second of two takeaways for me, again, just because of how popular a given project is, that does not imply that it is, razor like watertight and everything is in order and there will never be a security bug or a bug sort of exploited again. So they're my two big takeaways in what was an unfortunate day for the Curve protocol.
Yeah, good takeaways there, Matt. Thank you so much. And if you're a listener out there and you're concerned about security in DeFi, make sure you check out the Collective Shift Security Center, as well as the crypto safety risks profile that we have on the Collective Shift platform. This happens all the time in crypto. You have to make sure you keep yourself safe, and that's what we're here to help you to do. So thank you very much for that, Matt. Let's move on to our next major topic in crypto today, which is a crypto bill. Again, more regulation in the US. These guys do not want to give up. Matt, what's the scoop on this crypto bill and why is it so important?
Sure, thanks, Leo. With these sort of crypto bills in the US, we've sort of, we only like to comment on them when it's sort of a significant moment. There's been a lot of talk by politicians and different lawmakers over the past few months, just out there talking about crypto. But that in and of itself isn't super important. What is important is the results. So what actually happens in sort of the legislative process where bills go through the process of at the very end becoming law if they're successful. This was actually the first time last week we saw a crypto bill in the US pass a congressional committee in what was seen as a win for the industry. I must really emphasize that this is one of the very, very first steps in a legislative process. So this stage was what's called a markup. A markup is just where legislation is debated and brought to a vote, paving the way for a full vote by the House of Representatives. Similar to Australia, the US has two houses, of their Congress, what we would call Parliament. They have House of Representatives, which is their first sort of step that they got to get it through to really simplify it, and then they have the Senate, which is the second sort of step they've got to get it through before it would ultimately go to the president's office to sign off on the bill. So what I'm talking about right now, this markup stage, was actually before it even got to the House of Representatives. So from everything I'm reading from all the crypto lawyers, this has a decent chance of passing the House of Representatives. However, I suppose I really want to, emphasize just that it's not a given, right? That just because it's got this early momentum that it's going to maybe pass through automatically all the way to Joe Biden's office. Why is that the case? Because Congress, the Senate rather, is sort of majority led by the Democrats. House of Representatives is sort of led by the Republicans, at least in this sort of government that we currently have. And that sort of makes it a lot harder for law to pass through with bipartisan support, basically with both parties sort of agreeing that this is how it should go, without there being sort of a lot of debate and changes. So I suppose I've seen a lot of people get excited about the progress that's being made. I suppose, and what we're trying to do at Collective Shift is just sort of give you an honest take of where things are at. I would sort of temper that excitement with just, yes, it's exciting to see that this is sort of the first time crypto bill is actually made it this far. However, yeah, just reality is still an enormous challenge to get through what would ultimately be the Senate. So I suppose, yeah, that's where we're at in terms of what were, I think, three pieces of legislation.
Yeah, Matt, I multiple takeaways from that, but I'm kind of wondering for the person listening to this podcast here, if you're watching this on YouTube, what does it actually mean for anyone who's got any investments in cryptocurrencies? What could it actually do in the long run?
I'm glad you asked because this is something that I don't think a lot of crypto investors appreciate. However, I think this sort of these developments are ultimately a significant factor in terms of, well, me personally as a crypto investor, these developments are very important when I'm talking about my long term investment outlook for the space, and even the medium term, to be honest. Why is that the case? The US, again, rightly or wrongly, is seen as sort of a leading sort of guide for a lot of regulation around the world. I know Australia is one who sort of follows the US historically in a lot of different areas. And the US has really struggled to make any progress with legislating crypto or regulating crypto. So, again, as an investor, I would love some clarity from the US, because if that clarity does come, it would allow I could go on for hours about what that would actually mean for the space, but all of those reasons would be sort of bullish and would make me more confident in the future of this asset class. So developments like these are very important to be following, in my opinion, as an investor, because it really, I suppose, helps me decide how much to be allocating to the asset class and also when to be allocating. So I suppose that's just a reminder there of just, yeah, the importance of these crypto regulation, news stories, which can be pretty dry if you don't really understand why they matter.
Mm. But Matt, I'm so glad I have you on the team here because you always give me a great explanation and you always make me realize how important some of these regulations are. So thank you so much, Matt. I'm sure the rest of the team do appreciate it. But let's move on to our second last segment, ladies and gentlemen, where we talk about the things that our listeners should be looking forward to. Now, I've got a nice little surprise for you listeners out there, but Matt, you go first. I'll let you go. What do you have that you're looking forward to?
All right, I'm going with Base this week. So BASE. It is the new sort of scaling solution by Coinbase. It's really just a network or a blockchain that's kind of like Ethereum, but it's meant to do faster transactions, cheaper, easier to use. That's in very, very simple terms, of course. But that is being one of the biggest stories in the crypto space in 2023. And it is finally expected to go live at the start of August. So there's a good chance by the time we are recording our next podcast, it will be live. And yeah, I'm quite confident that this will be, again, looking back at 2023, I can see this being a very major sort of event that did sort of bring up or make up the 2023 calendar, Coinbase's launch of the Base network.
Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to it myself as well. I want to do some degens on there. I want to play around on that chain and just have some fun and shenanigans on there. We'll see what we can actually do when it launches, because there is a very nice, easy fiat gateway from Coinbase, the exchange into Base, the main net. But thanks for that, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. Now, I've got my one I want to share with you, watchers out there and listeners. Now, I'm looking forward to bookmarking all of my favorite content on the Collective Shift platform. Now, this has been something that the members have been asking for a while, and it's finally here. Let me show my screen so you can see what I'm looking at too. Let me go, and you can see. Awesome. So, on the top right-hand corner of the platform, we generate so much content, and I always have to go looking. So now you don't have to. It's all done for you. All you got to do is tag this top right on the top right hand corner set there, and it has this little save button. It's going to be changed to a bookmark button later on down the road, but whenever you do click on that, it saves all of these posts into a bookmark section on the left hand side of your screen. So you click on that, and these will be all of the great content that you always want to keep revisiting. Some of these content could be your exit strategies into the market, could be your entrance strategies, could be your portfolio strategies, and all the specific altcoin research that you want to keep on track of. So this is very powerful, and I'm very excited to share this with you. So we'll be having a small announcement that'll come out later on, and just to show you that we're still building out in this bear market and we're still around. So make sure you use the content on the platform. Matt, I love it. Have you used it at all yourself?
I have, yeah. I was playing around with it the other day, and yeah, it's a nice addition, and it keeps everything. It helps me have a lot less tabs open on my browser, which is always something I'm fighting. So,
Definitely. We
so
all
yeah,
have that
great.
problem. We all have that problem, mate. I've got 10 tabs and I need to close them, but I can't. It's too addicting. Yeah. All right, mate. So let's go on into the last segment of our show, ladies and gentlemen. So, Matt, can you share with us something that was either overappreciated or underappreciated in the market? What did you see in the last week, mate?
Yeah, one thing that I saw not a lot of people talking about was this, I suppose, changing of the guard temporarily, I suppose, in with relation to these layer two solutions and how popular or how widely used they are. So the two, really major ones are Optimism or OP mainnet and Arbitrum or Arbitrum One is its biggest chain. These two have been at a tussle going back and forth over the past sort of 12, 24 months in terms of how popular, it is quite a critical race. Whoever can get the most users, most developers first will very likely sort of capture the mind share and take quite a sort of an increasingly sort of large lead, in my opinion. So I'm watching this very closely. What happened last week? Well, Optimism recorded more daily transactions than Arbitrum for the first time since January this year. So going back about seven months ago or so. Does this impact the price of OP? Does it impact the price of the ARB token? Not necessarily in like the immediate term. However, as I said, this is something as an investor I'm closely watching because, as I said, it'll sort of really put whoever does win in a very comfortable position in terms of being able to capture the next sort of wave of users and developers that come with what I think will be the next inevitable bull run, maybe moving in later this year or into 2024. So that's a competition to keep your eye on, and we've been covering it a lot of Collective Shift the last few months.
Thanks very much for sharing that, Matt. And in my opinion, it's actually not just Optimism or Arbitrum. I'm actually keeping an eye on Base as well. If that manages to capture the mind share of the crypto industry, then hey, yeah, we have another competitor in the ring. So thank you very much for sharing that. But I'll share mine, ladies and gentlemen. So what kind of was underappreciated for me in the market at the moment this week was the SEC. It was the exchange between Coinbase and SEC. This came out in a news article recently. So the SEC asked Coinbase to delist all crypto except Bitcoin. That's curious, isn't it? Every crypto except Bitcoin. Now, is that a move signaling that the SEC can't go after Bitcoin and it's kind of invulnerable from a legal standpoint? But on the other side, maybe all of the other tokens and all the other cryptos are actually securities. Well, according to the SEC, right? So I'm going to read you a quote and an exchange between Coinbase's Armstrong, the CEO, as well as the SEC. This is Armstrong saying here, they came back to us and they said, we believe every asset other than Bitcoin is a security. As Armstrong's replying, we said, well, how are you coming to that conclusion, SEC? Because that's not our interpretation of the law. The SEC then replied to Armstrong saying, we're not going to explain it to you. You just need to delist every asset other than Bitcoin. Now, I know that is a whole lot of he said, she said. It's a whole lot of she said, he said. But at the end of the day, from my point of view, Bitcoin wins, right? That's the takeaway from me. Bitcoin exists outside of legislations, outside of corporations, and outside of geographical locations. So for me, Bitcoin is the clear winner in this entire thing. Bitcoin is not a security. And that's my really underappreciated news, Matt. Yeah.
Well said, Leon. Good way to wrap it up. Bitcoin has a lot of lower risks when comparing it to other cryptocurrencies out there.
Yeah, that's right. So that's a wrap, my friends. That's a wrap for this week. If you're looking for more insights, you make sure you check out our revamped weekly Shift newsletter, providing free market insights every Friday. Subscribe at collectiveshift.io/newsletter. That's collectiveshift.io/newsletter. See you soon.